I'd like to welcome you back to the show. I have with us tonight a friend of mine, Trevor Savage, who happens to have a YouTube channel of his own, among other things, that way eclipses mine. He is a very interesting man, a hybrid. He's a professional poker player. He's been on really high level shows. For those of you that are familiar with Poker After Dark, and it only can't really get much higher than that, and other shows, as well as other things that he does. But the amazing thing about Trevor is that he is very into mental health awareness. And it's a fascinating mixture, because being a poker player, people think of you as this guy that's ready for war, gimme. But as anybody who follows Trevor knows, his whole message is about love, his family. He raises his kids in an incredible, loving, fun way, and he shares it with the world, that we get to enjoy a little piece of it. And I'm going to stop ranting. Hey, Trevor.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank God. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So I guess we'll start off with a question. How did you get into poker and this mental health awareness? What came first? Like, what's your story? What's your journey, man?
Yeah, well, poker came first as far as between that and mental health. Started playing poker when I was in college at Rutgers University in 2001, 2002, around there, right before the moneymaker boom. It was actually about 6 months before the moneymaker boom. So it was like towards the end of 2002 that I started playing. And then once moneymaker happened, kind of became obsessed with it like everybody else, started going down to Atlantic City all the time. And then once I graduated in 2005, I was doing well enough at poker that I decided to give it a go for a living. And kind of the story has gone from there. Fortunate enough to live in New Jersey, where online poker was legalized in 2013. So I've been playing online since then, and it's been a long journey for that as far as poker goes. Mental health wise, it really kind of started actually about 10 years ago, when I was 30 years old. I'm turning 40 this year, so big milestone. I was turning 30, and I had some issues with anxiety and panic attacks. And so I kind of had some really bad panic attacks, sent me to the hospital, and I kind of had to figure out a way to help myself. I tried medication. That didn't work for me very well. Eventually I found a meditation and some other things like that. And that kind of set me on my path now to helping other people in that journey.
Interesting. Yeah. It's funny. We have more in common than I realized starting the show, because I also started playing poker on the East Coast. Usually you hear about all these vloggers starting out from like LA or Vegas. And also I also have issues with anxiety. But I think you're being a little humble keeping it to yourself, because I think you know what I'm getting at. You're always pushing for people to look out for other people, and for people to be aware of the signs. And I think we've both lost friends, if I remember correctly. It's a rough path. It's a rough thing to be in. It's a rough thing to observe. You can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, so my wife Jared and I started a podcast almost exactly 4 years ago. We're coming up on the end of season 4 right now. We started a podcast after one of our friends committed suicide, that kind of was the final push to get us to really start the podcast. And we focus on mental health on the podcast, but in kind of a way that's less intrusive to people, less heavy. We try to have fun on the podcast. We try to have deep conversations, but also have a good time as well. Because if everything's just too heavy, then it's people kind of tend to tune out. So our goal is really just to give something for people to be entertained by, and then have some deeper conversations and really be an advocate for people who maybe are struggling with something or need somebody to talk to.
Right. And what's the name of that podcast?
It's the Raising Nuts podcast.
The Raising Nuts. That's the name of the YouTube channel also, right?
Correct. Yeah. The podcast, episode 200 actually just came out this past week. So once we get to episode 208, that will be the end of season 4, and we'll start season 5 after that.
So about one a week.
Yeah, we put out one a week. Last year in season 4, we put out a 2 a week for the first half of the year. So we've actually done more than 200 episodes, but we were doing a lot more interviews and things like that at that point. But yeah, it's been out pretty consistently. Our schedule's been a little hectic lately. So our schedule for the podcast coming out has been a little bit less consistent, but overall it usually comes out once a week, usually on Wednesdays.
Gotcha. All right, we got to keep a lookout for that. I could explain it, but I think it would be more fun if you do. Raising the nuts. Can you explain for those people who are watching that are not so familiar with poker, the double play on words?
Yeah, that actually, I actually stole that from my wife. So she had a blog way back when. This is going back probably 12 or 13 years when we had two kids at the time. She started writing a blog about what it was like to be kind of like a poker wife slash mom, and she called it "Raising the Nuts in a Family Pot." And so, obviously from the parenting side of things, you're raising kids that are crazy, and most kids
And
are
your
crazy.
kids are characters.
Yeah, they're a bit of characters. And then from the poker side of things, when you have the nuts, it's the best possible hand, and raising, you're usually going to try to put a lot of money in the pot when you have the best possible hand. So raising the nuts kind of works out that way as well.
Yeah, it's funny. So just to take a quick turn to the side here, I'm curious, what's your mindset when you're playing poker? I mean, I don't want to give you a guilt trip, but you're a good guy. I mean, although I know a lot of good guys in the poker world, it's amazing how many good people there are out there, but I'm going to pick on you. What's your mindset when you want to win, but at the same time, you kind of feel guilty because you don't want the other guy to lose? Or do you just block that out? I mean, how are you able to keep this balance of being a great family man, in general, trying to do your good, leave, your mark to improve the world, and then just destroy them at the table?
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think you have to separate the things. It helps to play online because I don't actually have to see anybody in pain. But I think it's just the idea of like it's people willing to go into a competition together, and it's kind of like you're willingly participating in a competition. So once you willingly participate in something, and all bets are off, and I'm going to do my best to win the money and support my family in that way, and hopefully people will get some sort of entertainment out of it, or they get a challenge out of it, or whatever it is that they want to get out of poker. But it's not like I'm not forcing them to play. So obviously there's some kind of human element to it, like you don't want people to suffer, and obviously people with addiction issues tend to be drawn to games like poker and things like that, which is a tough thing to get through, obviously. But again, it's a willing participant type thing. So
Right.
they have the ability to play a fair game, and if they can beat me, they get to take the money, and if they don't, then I get to win the money.
Right. It's tough though, because you're mostly a cash game player, if I got you right. But you use that tournament way of thinking, that you put the money in and then it's a competition. So yeah, I guess you could apply that thought process with the hopes that nobody's playing above their head in the cash game element.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, in any form of any kind of type of gambling competition, you're gonna be playing against people who probably shouldn't be playing. But unfortunately, I don't have control over that, and so all I can do is do my best to compete at the game that I like to play, and then do the best in the rest of my life to make sure that I'm, you know, helping people as much as I possibly can.
Fair enough. Okay, now I got one more question for you. And this is on the poker side. And that is, do you believe that there's this like ingredient? Because you're a really, really good poker player. I mean, for those of you out there who don't know Trevor, he's a top level poker player. And my question is, do you believe that there's an ingredient that the top players know that everybody else is just not getting? Or does everybody have their own style? And you fell in love with poker and found what works for you, and you're not necessarily using that same strategy as the next guy or the next guy or the next guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of people out there that understand strategy to poker, but there's far fewer people that understand what it means to win long term. So I think that's the biggest difference is people can play well for a while, but then the minute that things start to go poorly, or they have an extended stretch where things aren't going their way, then it kind of all goes to goes to the can pretty quickly for them. So I think there's a lot of people out there who, if they're playing their A game, can be winning players long term. But the vast majority of people can't maintain that long enough, and their B game or their C game is far worse than most people. So I think that's the biggest recipe for success, is just having the mental game to things to be able to withstand when things are not going your way or whatever. Most of the people that you see that have success are basically just on the heater for an extended period of time, and then the minute that starts to turn a little bit, then all of a sudden things start to change a little bit, and it's hard to stay in this game for a long time. So I think that's the biggest difference, is that you just have the mental ability to bounce back when things aren't going your way, or to not lose as much as others when things aren't going your way.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're saying there is a specific skill, and I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
No, yeah. I mean, there is a skill. It's just, I think it's less about the X's and O's of the poker game, and more about the long-term sustainability of decision making and treating things in like a job fashion, more so than just a hobby or whatever you want to say, or treating the game with respect, kind of.
Understood. Bankroll management, all that. It's funny. I think that, like, being a successful poker player is a career of losing. Like, if you want to be a good mechanic, you can't be screwing up 80% of your cards. If you want to be a good lawyer, doctor, but in poker, you're losing your way to riches. Like, it's, if you can't handle losing, you're in the wrong place, because you're gonna lose a lot, especially professional tournament players. But yeah, I got. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, the best players in the world are going to break even for very extended periods of times, but they're breaking even when other people would be losing. And then when they win way, way more than other players would win in their stretches, because one, their skill level is higher, but two, from a momentum standpoint, they just don't ever take their foot off the pedal. So,
Right.
Their winning streaks and their big wins are far bigger than other people who, they will play shorter sessions when they're winning a lot. They'll play far less hours when they're winning a lot. And then when they start to lose, they'll play far longer sessions as losing sessions, and they'll play more often. So, you look at, even this goes for tons of pros too, just not the elite ones. You look at lots of pros who will play 60 hours or something in a month, where they have winning months, and then they play 180 hours in their losing months. And
Right.
that's just never going to be a recipe for very, very strong success long term.
It's kind of like the stock market. When your stock goes down, you want to sit and hope, but when it goes up, you want to lock in that profit. When the truth is, you should be running with the winners, and it's like the hardest thing to get your brain to do.
Yeah,
So,
it's hard to wrap your head around it. And it's really that, in poker, it's the opposite. When things are going well, you should just always go as hard as you possibly can for as long as you can. And then when things are going poorly, you take the day off or whatever, or you take some breaks, or you play less. And that's where it kind of helps to have a bit more balanced life, where, if things are not going well in poker, it doesn't really matter to me, because I have other things going on in my life that I'm more enthusiastic about, and I play poker each day, and I treat it like a job. So I play, a regular kind of work schedule, and when I'm done, and I do more things that I find fulfilling in my life than poker. So if I win for the week, I don't even know if I win for the week or if I lose for the week most of the time. Like, I don't check my results till the end of the month, and even then, sometimes I don't even bother checking, because it just doesn't really matter. So it's not really, it's just kind of what I do every day. And the more important things to me are the things I do after poker, which is spending time with my kids, or coaching baseball, or things like that.
I totally hear you. I hear you loud and clear. It's all about having priority. If you are just knee deep, overwhelmed thinking about poker, not only is it going to be bad for you, but you're not going to feel like, what are you doing there if you're not even enjoying it? And you forget so easily that you're supposed to be enjoying things in life, especially at a poker table that you're losing at. And it's weird, like, a lot of people do that. So I hear you.
Yeah, the vast majority of people you hear say how they hate poker, and yet they're doing it so much part of their life, or their job or whatever, and they hate it. It's like, well, then it's probably not a good one to pick. You know, I like to pick things that I enjoy doing, and that's why I still play poker. It's been almost, I started playing poker 21 years ago. I've started playing poker for a living 18 or 19 years ago, somewhere around there. And I still enjoy it. It's still part of my life. It's still something I want to do all the time, but it's not my life. It's not all of my life for sure.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. And I think it was a very enjoyable conversation. Thank
No
you, Trevor.
problem. Yeah, not a problem.
Thank you. God bless.